Yeah, just me. I wasn't with the news team. She's been covering that every day with Drew.
Good. That we're off, or do they figure it out?
Why don't I make a phone call?
Wow, that's incredible. That's big time. I love you. Love New York. And some of the reporters have it. See, look at you. You're not even paying attention.
Hey, how about the live view?
Oh,
It's live view set
Yeah,
up.
I'm right there.
How did it is? Live view 7. It doesn't say a rep.
I need to go right
No, we didn't. Oh.
Please. I'm going right
And who am I supposed to call?
Thank you for asking.
In Jess?
Thank you.
We haven't. Okay. Hi, I'm on a live view, and I'm supposed to call you guys. Is that right? I got when it's up, and the press conference starts at 1. I couldn't even begin to tell you. I got a conference room. I don't know. I'm in New York. I'm a freelance cameraman. We got the live view from the desk.
yes, sir.
Cool and gang. We're one and the same. Seamless.
We are. Live view.
How are you doing? Good seeing you again. Yeah.
Okay, that was an accident.
Hi everyone, just to let everyone know, when the speaker is about to speak and make their statement, they will come to the front, so
Okay.
we'll help out with the sound.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Shashi, the man. Glad I'm not at this moment. Okay. All right.
Hi. So I got live view pack 7. Hi, I got live view pack 7, New York pack 7. It's a live view. Who do I call to like call on it? Can you send me there? There's like I'm at a press conference and there's like a 1 minute before it starts rolling. This is not right. Hey, I got a live view, but I don't have a REM. And it's like 1 minute before the press conference starts. Yes, I would think so. We got New York pack 7. My first name is Fred. Who's our producer? Yeah, great. I'm the shooter, Fred Silva. Errol Barnett is the correspondent. We don't have a producer. That's why I'm making it. I'm a little punchy about it. Oh, you answered the phone. I made my sure that we answer.
Do you see us?
Well, if you know, I'm talking like you. I'm talking to Ingest. You know somebody. Yeah, we're good. We're
Oh, you have it.
everything's fine.
Okay.
It's the coronavirus press conference.
我们现在的位置是在纽约的华埠，那这边呢是王家联社区医疗中心。那么这个记者会即将开始。现在纽约市卫生局的一个局长，还有这边的一些当地社区的医生，还有社区的领袖都会出席这个活动。那我们在这边给大家直播。
Hour and a half. How much time do we need? Yeah, let's just say an hour and a half. Might be less. Yeah. Okay, now who do I need to tell that to start rolling? Right, we're at REM 304. Thanks. Yep.
Press kit for one media. One media has one.
Hey, we're REM 304.
For one media.
Awesome.
Please pass for one media only.
We're at conference room. Do you see us?
Couple more, we're drawing all of them.
Yeah. Chinese American Medical
Maybe
Society.
3 or 4 more.
Still have?
168 Center.
I think it's good.
Good?
Then two.
2 more.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you see us? It says stop, so it looks like it's going. We talked to Newspath, they said we're on REM 304. Is there some other information that might help you? On the line, you see CBS RX 0010. Nobody asked me for that one yet. I would have been happy to give it to you. We're on the camera. That would be really bad for me. I'd rather you stay with me. Because the conference is starting in literally 15 seconds. And at some point, I'm just going to put down the phone and then you'll be with me again. So I'd rather stay out.
现在还没有开始，我跟大家讲一下，就是纽约市健康与心理卫生局的局长会在这边与会。然后我们现在这个位置是在王家联的社区医疗中心。那今天的主题呢，就是讲现在最热门的武汉肺炎这个议题。
That I know nothing about, because the line is kind of showing the picture and it's saying it's up. It's not saying anything but stop. 4,300 kilometers per second.
Oh, yeah.
You're here, so you're just starting to show. I came here and said that.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Jane Eng, and I'm the president and CEO of the Charles B. Wang Community Health Center. We're very happy today to invite you to come to this press conference to gather information, to give out to the community about what's going on in this country and in abroad with the coronavirus. That's and we just want to update everybody and give you more information about what's happening in the community. And we're very pleased today to welcome representatives from the Department of Health, the Commissioner of Health, and also from our fellow Chinese American Medical Society and our elected officials, and also from the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association and the Chinese American Nurses Association, the Chinese American IPA, the other associations that we work with, and also Maimonides Hospital, Columbia Presbyterian, and Mount Sinai. We welcome all of you to participate in our press conference. And the Charles B. Wang Community Health Center has been serving the Asian American community for nearly 50 years. We were established in 1971, and we've been providing services throughout the New York City metropolitan area for the past 49 years, going on 49 years. And at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Warren Chin from the Executive Director of the Chinese American Medical Society.
Welcome, everyone. I want to thank Charles B. Wang Community Health Center for hosting this press conference. And happy Lunar New Year to everyone. Now, as cases of coronavirus is growing exponentially in China, with official report over 100 deaths and over 4,600 people infected, and in Hong Kong closing the border by starting to issue individual travel permits from China, this has raised a lot of concern and alarm in our Chinese community. I actually have friends texting me that they are not coming to Chinatown for Lunar New Year celebration, and my daughter telling me that I should wear a mask when I see every single patient. As the mayor said last week, it's not if, but when, that the coronavirus will hit New York. Although there's no confirmed cases yet, there are already cases that are placed in isolation and awaiting test results from CDC. It's inevitable that the Chinese community will most likely to be affected first. Now, the purpose of this press conference is to keep the community informed, updated, and to assure that the city, the Department of Health, the medical and health professional, healthcare centers, and hospitals are prepared, ready, and able to face this challenge, as well as important things to educating the public on taking common sense precautions to mitigate exposure and to wear masks and seek medical attention if you think you've been exposed to or have exposed to members that can have the potential problem, to avoid infecting others. At this time, I'm honored to introduce Dr. Alexis Babo, New York City Health Commissioner, who has taken from her very busy schedule, as you can imagine, to share information from the Department of Health. Thank you.
If you can move over one more, please. Thank you.
Better?
Thank you. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gong Hei Fat Choi. Happy New Year. Happy Lunar New Year. It's a pleasure to be here at this convening, and I was just recalling that when I first started as health commissioner, my first stop was here at the Charles B. Wang Center, because they are such really a pivotal partner to all of the initiatives that we are doing and the collaborations that we have with the Chinese American community. I want to thank the Chinese American Independent Practice Association. We have worked with them also for the past several years, including initiatives on quality improvement and advancing primary care. And we have also worked with the Chinese American Medical Society on past outbreaks. And so I think this is yet another opportunity for us to show the degree to which we are in strong partnership. And I'm confident that the links that we have built between us will help to protect the health of New Yorkers as we move forward in facing this new novel coronavirus. And so as we share information about where we are, it's important to start by reiterating the fact that we have been saying from the beginning of this response that the current risk to New Yorkers is low and our preparedness is high. And what you see here before you is one of the components that comprise all of our preparedness efforts. And so let me just sort of give a quick overview of the novel coronavirus and what we know thus far and what we do not know. And so, as has been talked about, this is a new strain of a known virus family. It causes a diversity of symptoms that can range from the mild to the very severe. Across the globe, we have seen a fairly dramatic increase in the number of individuals that have been diagnosed with this novel coronavirus that was first identified in early January. To date, there have been 4,567 confirmed cases around the world, primarily in China. And tragically, more than 100 people have died because of this illness. Every day, we are learning new information about this virus, and currently what we do know is that it is transmitted from person to person. From what we see so far in China is that the transmission is almost, I would say, primarily in contacts that live with each other, meaning that it takes prolonged exposure to have the virus transmitted. You may hear various things in different outlets that individuals can transmit while they are asymptomatic. Thus far, the best that we can say is that those reports are anecdotal at best, and that the science has not yet been able to determine whether in fact that actually is the case. And part of the importance of being here and working with our partners is ensuring that we arm New Yorkers with the facts so that they are in the best positions to protect themselves and their families. So there are things that we know and there are things that we don't know. Currently, in terms of the best ways in which New Yorkers can protect themselves, is anyone who has traveled to the Wuhan area in the last 14 days or has come in contact with someone who has traveled to that area and is exhibiting symptoms of fever, cough, shortness of breath, overall malaise, should communicate with their doctor. And that's why it's important for us to be here with the groups of providers that you see before you, because the best line of defense is our front line of defense, and that's the importance of having astute clinicians. So we want New Yorkers to go about their everyday lives, but if they're feeling symptomatic, we want them to seek care as early as possible. First step should be to call your doctor, let them know about your travel and your symptoms. And then on the line of astute physicians and healthcare providers, the important thing is to ensure that all of the protocols that you've drilled with us in terms of how to handle a patient who has a potentially communicable disease are put into action. And that includes, providing masks as these individuals present to your office, or directing them to the nearest emergency room and communicating beforehand and ensuring that we communicate on a regular basis. And so it's key that we continue to have this open communication. And thus far, we have received over 70 calls from providers who have treated patients with influenza-like illnesses and worked with them to determine the best course of action. I am pleased to say that we have had no diagnoses of coronavirus in New York City. There have been no individuals that have risen to the level of even thinking about or collecting specimens to send for diagnosis. And the only way in which we are able to really have that level of certainty is by the collaboration and communication that we have with our clinical partners and having astute New Yorkers. Now, I want to just transition for a minute to talk about what we are seeing, the very, very early stages of here, and that we can use your help on. You know, my experience has been, and this has been borne out in other outbreak situations, is that it's important for us to separate facts from fear and to guard against stigma. There are a lot of things on social media that are, I would say, at best, not rooted in science, and at worst, offensive, demeaning, and bigoted. And it's incumbent on us to remain focused on the facts rather than perpetuating stereotypes about what may be causing this outbreak. And so I want to just reiterate once more that the risk to New Yorkers is low, our preparedness is high, and at this point in time, there is no reason to avoid subways or restaurants or change our daily routine. The important thing is to live your everyday life, stay alert about updates, and check in with your provider if you feel unwell. And again, I can't thank enough the providers that we have around the table who are working with us to ensure that patient education materials are distributed and that we are all focused on accurate information. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. At this point, I'd like to invite Mr. Eric Ng, President of CCPA.
Hi, my name is Eric Ng, President of Chinese Consolidated and our Association. User Mayor Ibasio and Bloomberg call me Mayor of Chinatown. I represent Chinese community in this area. Unfortunately, last Saturday is the first day of Chinese New Year. Usually we have a lot of activity, especially social party after the Chinese New Year, especially from Thursday. The party will be still going on. As I know, just Warren and Health Department Commissioner just say that the statistic, and every morning I read the newspaper update. This morning the 106 passed away and 4,500 cases. The best information for our Chinese if they travel to China, and they will cross the border from Thursday. They cannot go to Hong Kong. If you have to come back from China, I hope you have self-distancing to stay home at least 14 days. That's the best. If you have any symptom, you better call your doctor or you report to the health department and make sure don't blend in the society. That's the only thing you can help the society don't spread out the virus. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ng. The Mayor of Chinatown. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Perry Pong, the Chief Medical Officer of Charles Wang Community Health Center.
We have a lot of doctors here, so I'll be brief, but thank you for coming. I think Dr. Barbeau's words are really and should be calming to the community and to the city at large. You know, we are working, we as the health center and as health professionals are working closely with Department of Health, and they are really giving us the guidance that we need. So I really want to, again, reassure our own patients and public, you know, to please go on as you do, but of course, do take prudent precautions, okay? Just like you would advise your teenager or your child, right? Wash your hands after you go out anywhere, right? And if you want to follow the Department of Health guidelines, they would say wash it for 20 seconds and sing happy birthday until you finish, or use hand sanitizer. You know, don't touch your eyes, mouth, or nose, because now I can transmit anything that was around. And it's not scientifically known whether or not wearing a mask might prevent you from getting infection, just the general public. Of course, if we're seeing a patient who is ill, we've been advised to wear masks and gowns and gloves, but that's really for the person who is sick, fever, coughing, and is ill. So please do not add to fears or panic that I have to wear a mask or I have to go on Amazon and stock up or something like that. That's not helpful. Okay, so really just try to reassure people. We at the health center are taking all precautions. We're cleaning very vigorously all their surfaces and taking travel histories from patients, asking where they've been. And I think this just reinforces what good medical care is and what we should be doing or should have been doing all along. So I'm sure all the other medical people here have more to say, so I'll keep that brief. But thank you for coming, and you know, I think the tone of this is, you know, we'll see where this goes. More information is coming. A lot of people feeling fear or feeling unease because of the information that we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's happening next. So, you know, stay tuned. But you know, we have a great medical team here, and I really thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Fong. At this point, I'd like to invite Mr. Peter Koo, City Council Member, New York City District 20.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, this is a very important topic. That's why I come down from Flushing, and the train is really sluggish. So I'm sorry I'm late. Yeah. So we're here to discuss a very important issue in the Asian American Chinese community, especially. We're here to get the word out. That what our community need to do to know. And what we know so far is that we are still learning about the coronavirus. So we must control what is within our power to control. It's important that our community exercise best practice in order to keep ourselves and loved ones safe from infection. Use common sense, cleanliness, and sanitation techniques. Wash your hands, cover your mouth when you sneeze or cough, and if you have been to Wuhan recently and feel ill, see a doctor immediately. Healthcare officials are advising New Yorkers to go about their daily lives, but be vigilant. Also, be careful with this information you read. There's a lot of unverified information online that we just don't know is true. For the real facts, look to medical providers here today. The Department of Health and the CDC and your own family doctor. We must do our part to reduce the possibility of infection. There's no need to panic, but we should all be very cautious. Just be careful and go on your daily lives. And another thing I want to point out is in the business community, a lot of parties, they cancel. I think some of them is not necessary. We all have to be vigilant, but we're not afraid and all stay home and don't go out to the regular parties that we're supposed to go. So I just want to let the committee know about be calm, everything's okay, and we are safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. point, I'd like to invite Dr. Yit Woon Lee, President of Chinese American Medical Society.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Yit Woon Lee, and I am the President of the Chinese American Medical Society. In a way, it is good that the 2019 novel coronavirus is making headlines all over the world to alert the providers and the public. This virus can potentially be like MERS and SARS if proper precautions are not taken properly. However, when my patient passed out in my waiting room because she got her RVP, which is the respiratory viral panel, is stated positive for coronavirus NL63, that is a problem. When the media stereotype the Chinese for causing this new coronavirus because they claim that Chinese people eat bats and foxes and things like that, that's bad. When we forget that the 2020 influenza has killed over 6,000 people already in the United States alone, that is our biggest problem. So please keep in mind that coronavirus is really not that dangerous to humans. Unfortunately, there are some coronavirus that are very dangerous. Like we remember SARS, right? Severe acute respiratory syndrome. That outbreak happened back in 2002 and 2003 in South China. And we also had MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. The outbreak came out during 2012 in Saudi Arabia. And finally, we have the 2019 coronavirus. The numbers are constantly changing, but they are close to 4,000 cases, 106 deaths. There is now more concern because there's a concern about person-to-person transmission of this virus. Worldwide, the disease has reached 16 countries, including the United States. We have confirmed 5 cases of novel virus in the United States, 2 in California, 1 in Arizona, 1 in Washington, and 1 in Illinois. Good news that the WHO, or World Health Organization, has not yet declared that the new coronavirus is a public global health emergency. So that's good news. Nevertheless, the Chinese American Medical Society is following the 2019 coronavirus infection very closely. And we are constantly informing and updating our 1,300 plus CAMS physicians with the latest CDC and New York City Department of Health guidelines. CAMS will continue to provide free public education on how to prevent viral infection to the public. CAMS will continue to work closely with New York City hospitals to prepare for any coronavirus outbreak. CAMS will not rest until this 2019 new coronavirus is contained. Thank you very much.
So I would just like to take the opportunity to emphasize something that the distinguished doctor mentioned and clarify that coronavirus is a part of a family of viruses that includes 7 strains. The 2 strains that have captured worldwide attention in the last several years are SARS and MERS. And the 4 strains that we commonly test for, either in doctor's offices or at the hospital, are 4 strains of coronavirus that are known to cause symptoms consistent with the common cold or mild flu-like symptoms. I want to make sure that we sort of give those bookends of the coronavirus family, and to say that experience so far illustrates that clearly this new novel coronavirus of 2019 is more severe than the 4 common strains that we typically test for in offices and in healthcare systems but as of yet does not appear to be as fatal as the two other strains in that family, which are MERS and SARS. And so that's why we are, as other public health officials around the world, taking this very seriously and ensuring that, again, we share accurate information. We give New Yorkers the tools to take care of themselves and their families, but also contextualize the potential risk. And so right now, just to reiterate, the risk is low and our preparedness is high.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Dr. Lee. And just make a comment, more people, like Dr. Lee mentioned, more people die from the flu every year, so please do get your flu vaccine. The next speaker I'd like to invite up is Dr. Richard Ng. He's the Medical Director of the Coalition of Asian American IPA.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Ng. I'm the Medical Director of Coalition of Asian American IPA. So I want to tell you something about our organization, just to demonstrate why it is that we believe that we play an important role in this event. Our organization are composed of just under 1,200 providers, and 686 of them are clinicians. They are the frontline clinicians that will see patients daily. They care for approximately 450,000 patients in New York City. Majority of them are Asian. So we are constantly communicating with our provider, make sure that they update that they have the latest update of the guideline, how to take care of the patient in the clinic. This is not just the clinician or the physician themselves, but also the staff, the front desk people, how would they handle patient with the symptoms. So, and also that we heard a report that some physicians experience that there are many patients that come into their office and ask them to test for the virus. So I think we got a sense that there are people out there that they really worry. And partially, I believe that there is some misinformation out there that is not really based on any facts. And I think our job as our CAIPA organization is to educate the general public as soon as possible and not to create any panic. I think that will be our next step. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Could I ask Dr. George Liu, he's the president of the Trans-American IPA, to also come up to say a few words?
Yeah, everybody, thank you.
Will you come up to the microphone, please?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm the president and CEO of Chinese American IPA. And this Wuhan crisis is really a very, very important and a very high problem for CAIPA physicians. CAIPA, I don't know, Dr. James already probably explained, CAIPA have about 1,200 practitioners and handling about 600,000 of the Chinese population in Greater New York, metropolitan New York. And the issue is very serious for the practitioner because after the New Year, a lot of people return from China, and most of the people does not know about the high contagious and risk for this virus. And when they have a problem, to go directly to the physician's office. So the physician is facing a serious problem of the how we deal with those patients. Patients would really needed some of the guidelines from CDC, and we ourselves is creating a very brief general recommendation to physicians. What we want to do is that all the physicians in the front desk, everybody's supposed to wear mask and the basic protection so as the providers. At the same time, we wanted front desk people to call all the patients to make sure every patient who have show up in the clinic, they has been asking the history, traveling history, and the symptoms. By doing that, we can avoid the cross-contamination. The people come to the clinic in quickly causing a lot of disease transmission in the clinic, because most of the people in the clinic are old and diabetic, hypertensive, which we know is high risk for the situation. So by doing that, we also ask the patient, if you have symptoms or you have travel history, but not showing significant symptoms, we want these people actually stay home and make routine appointment to see the doctor 2 weeks after they return from China, or they have people, family member just recently traveled from China. Because now we know this disease in the very beginning could be asymptomatic. The incubation time is significant. So by the time they come to the doctor's office, maybe they have nothing wrong with them, but later on they are the carriers. So that's one of the things we want to show all the patients who has problems with the travel history or symptoms. They can be stay home, because actually I think everybody agrees there's no medication actually can cure this virus at this time. But when they have problems, really become symptomatic, high fever, short of breath, we recommend them go to ER or call CDC directly. They have a call number, because we needed to confirm the diagnosis is significant, difficult. There's no way a doctor's office can do it. The reason we don't want them to come to doctor's office, because most of the doctors in Chinatown, in Chinese community, the office is very small. They're not Article 28 facilities. So they cannot really deal with the patient. There's no isolation, there's no negative pressure room, and all the rooms are very small. So by doing that, it only create problems. Cannot help the doctors, doctor cannot help, and only have the disease to be transmitted to other people. So that's our recommendation now to our members. And I think we have a very good summary information from CDC to published in Chinese language. So it's very useful.
Thank you, Dr.
So I also want to take the opportunity to emphasize some of the points that were made. The incubation period of this virus can range anywhere from roughly 2 days to 14 days. From what we're seeing right now, most people would get diagnosed around the 5 to 6 day mark in terms of developing symptoms. And as I said at the beginning, there is no indication right now that asymptomatic people can transmit the virus. We are learning new facts about the virus every day, but for right now, that's where we are. I think the important thing to note is that clinical practices should have measures in place so that they can do the pre-screening ahead of time, so that people who we typically think of as the worried well don't have to come to the office, and for individuals who may indeed have been exposed, when they come to the office in a way that is safe for all involved in terms of being having a mask put on quickly. So I think these are the important points to note in terms of where we are, what makes sense in terms of good clinical practice, and what we want New Yorkers to know as they go about their daily lives, protecting themselves, their families, and their communities.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to invite Dr. Ali Javed, MD, who's a hospital epidemiological director, as well as the of the Mount Sinai Downtown Network.
Thank you very much. I'll just tell you a little bit about what our system is doing, the health system, also our system is doing, and also I'll be available for answering any questions later on. But I will say that most of what has been spoken about already covers majority of issues that are before us. For the health system, infection control department as well as emergency management department is working closely and monitoring the situation closely. We are here working, partnering with health departments, our New York City as well as state, and getting guidance from them as well as CDC about this rapidly evolving situation. We have a plan about what to do if a person comes in with respiratory illness and has a history of travel. We are prepared to handle any of such cases at this time. Apart from that, if a person comes with symptoms, and we have seen a few people coming with symptoms concerning travel, we have handled them appropriately based on the guidance, communicating with the health department and taking it from there. At this time, there is no active patients in our hospital with confirmed coronavirus illness. Any questions?
We'll actually take questions after the speakers. Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to invite Dr. Judy Lin. Dr. Judy Lin's attending physicians, our emergency room physicians from Maimonides.
Hi, thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Judy Lin. I'm one of the emergency medicine attendings at Maimonides Medical Center in Brooklyn, New York. So Maimonides is just adjacent to one of the largest Chinese American communities in Brooklyn, so we're taking this very seriously. The emergency department is critical to our city's preparedness to this virus because it's our role is to identify, isolate, and also prevent further spread of this infection. So I'd like to comment a little bit about our protocol. It's similar to the protocols we've had in place for other high-risk infections such as measles and Ebola. So immediately with any patient that comes to the waiting room with signs of infection, they will be given a mask, and then our triage nurses will be asking if they've had any travel within 4 weeks to China or been in contact with anyone who's traveled to China in the past 4 weeks. They'll also be asked if they have signs of infection such as fever, headache, shortness of breath, myalgia, sore throat, etc. This will then trigger our lead physician to come immediately evaluate this patient, and if they feel that this case is suspicious, they're immediately isolated in our negative pressure room. Only essential staff will be allowed to go in to take care of the patient. They will have personal protective equipment throughout all times. We will also be contacting the New York State Department of Health with all these cases and taking appropriate precautions. The state and the city.
Thank you, Dr. Can I now invite Dr. Gulan Su, President of ACAP, to say a few words?
Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Camps. You invited me to attend this very important conference. I'm representative of the Association of Chinese American Physicians, another major Chinese physician organization in the city. As Dr. Giorgio said, ideally, we have a patient like this. You see the emergency, but the reality is majority of our patients just have this kind of patient or other kind of patient. They like to their own family doctor. So our doctor is mainly the practice is Flushing and Brooklyn, and some of them are Manhattan. So our doctor is actually the first line. Most of it is the first line people against this spread. So during past several days, our group has a very extensive discussion. We discuss about the precaution, the guidelines, and how we stock those important equipment, the mask, the protective device. So in that said, our group, physician, mentally and physically prepared for this coronavirus infection prevention. in case the case come to New York City. So the other things, because the Chinese physician, many of our friends and family and friends still live in China. They travel China very often. And you know the China now is short of a supply. They don't have any mask and protective equipment. So we organize those donation activity. We try to send some necessary equipment to the China, help our Chinese counterparts fight against this disease. So we are doing very well so far. And those activities actually help with Red Cross. At the end, I want to thank you, the press friends, and I request with respect the press, why we don't spread the panic situation. We ask our people who travel in those epidemic areas, or you feel like uncomfortable with the disease, see our doctor. You know, we have a doctor has all the information, can provide.
Thank you, Dr. Su. At this point, I'd like to acknowledge that we have representatives from Mayor's office, Mr. Peyton Sun is here. We have Ms. Winnie Greco from Eric Adams' office. And we have Ian Chen from Councilman Margaret Chin's office. Thank you for coming. At this point, in the pressure of time, I'm going to open the floor for questions now. Anyone have any
Commissioner,
questions?
we kept hearing the city's partnering with the community. How exactly is that partnership working? And also, what has changed to have this press conference today? What's new?
So I think what you've heard from the various people who have spoken really is the best sort of way in which we can represent how the city is partnering with the provider community, the folks who are most likely to see their patients and be the ones to answer questions about concerns. You know, nothing has changed in terms of when we first made this announcement at the end of last week with regards to our preparedness. I think what we are interested in doing is participating with our partners to show New Yorkers all of the ways in which we are prepared to deal with this situation. I think, you know, for the early part, we focused on airport screenings and what was happening with incoming flights. Now, with the travel restrictions that have been imposed in Wuhan and seem to be expanding, we want to make sure that New Yorkers know that it's unclear what impact that those travel restrictions will have, and that irrespective of those, our forward stance on this still remains what I would say aggressive and muscular. We're not taking anything for granted, and we need all of our partners to have the same sort of vigilance that we have and ensure that New Yorkers have the facts to know how to keep themselves, their families, and their communities safe in a way that is simply not in panic mode, but in an informed and measured way.
Commissioner, sorry, Commissioner, some of our press wants to know that since there are 9 suspected cases in New York, could you comment a little bit about these cases? Are they from New York City? Are they from Brooklyn? Are they from Manhattan, Queens? Beverly, that's statistic. They can tell the press.
So as I mentioned before, there are 0 individuals who have been tested for coronavirus. There are 0 individuals who are patients under investigation in New York City. The 9 that have been reported by the state are not New York City residents.
Commissioner, you said that eventually there could be a case in New York City. What is the likelihood that person either traveled from China or lives with someone from China versus someone who has no connection to China?
So right now, based on what we're seeing from China, based on what we're seeing from other countries, there's no indication that there's transmission that's happening in the community that's not connected to cases where the individuals have spent time in the affected area or lived with someone who came from the affected area. That may change, you know, as I've been sort of saying, this is a rapidly evolving situation. It's a virus that is quickly adapting to its human hosts. And so based on the best information that we have right now from the World Health Organization, from the CDC, that's where we are.
So just to follow up on that, because this is also flu season, if someone's in New York with flu-like symptoms and they have no clue if they've come in contact with someone who may have the coronavirus, what would you advise?
So first, let me start off by saying it's not too late to get the flu vaccine. The second thing I would say is this is not the year to skip the flu vaccine. The third thing I would say is that all of our partners across this table are ready to give anybody the flu vaccine. And if anybody has any doubts about where to get the flu vaccine, they can call 311 or visit our website at nyc.gov/health. That being said, I will reiterate that two things. There is no indication that there's ongoing what we call community transmission, which means that individuals who don't have connection to the affected area are in any way transmitting. And for right now, there's no indication that someone who is asymptomatic can be shedding the virus and passing infection. So those are the things that I think are important for New Yorkers to know and to feel reassured that they should go about their everyday lives implementing, doing everyday precautions that we advise during flu season, which is washing their hands often, which is covering their mouths and their noses when they sneeze or cough, and remaining alert to any changes in directions that we may be giving.
And a quick follow-up for Councilman Koo. You mentioned that some business parties are being cancelled. You don't think it's necessary. A number of people here have referenced stereotypes and bigoted remarks that have been made. Can you elaborate on just the mood in the Chinese American community in the New York area right now, and what kind of effect this is all having on daily life?
Well, people are
Can we
concerned.
have you
come to the
mic,
scoot
please?
on in.
People are concerned about this, but I emphasize that they shouldn't be over concerned. They have to be cautious. A lot of people they travel to Wuhan or other parts of China and they return. People are afraid of them because hey, you better isolate yourself first, in your house before coming out and talk to other people. So that's why some parties were concerned because when they invited like 1,000 people to a party, they don't necessarily know all the information from every guest, right? Because most people that buy a table of 10, so the host doesn't know who is coming. So to be cautious, they cancel some of those parties because those are too big. If you know every one of your guests who's coming, that they haven't been outside the country, you don't worry about it. Right? But sometimes some of the guests, they come with, they just came back from China or their son. So they worry about those things. But I emphasize this. Very few people return from China. If they're sick, they still go out. They know they have to be isolated. They know they have to go to hospitals, even though most of them they don't get the virus. They probably get regular flu, like most of us.
Commissioner, if I could piggyback off that question, you mentioned misinformation. Has there been, is the city seeing a growing level of misinformation since the last DOH briefing last week?
No, I think what we are seeing is more items on social media spreading misinformation about how it's spread, and that's what we are concerned about. And so that's why it's important to ensure that we take every opportunity to educate New Yorkers not only about what the signs, symptoms are, and what actions they should take, but as importantly, how the healthcare delivery system is ready to receive them, again, to ensure that we identify quickly, we diagnose quickly, and we take the appropriate medical measures that might be needed.
We've heard from employers that at least one of them, where they do business in China, that they're saying that folks that come back from China can't come back to the office. They have to kind of stay home for 14 days. What do you think about policies like that?
Let me start off by saying that CDC has increased its travel advisory to the highest level, which is level 3, which is telling individuals to avoid unnecessary travel to the Wuhan area. I think with regards to individuals returning from abroad, again, the same recommendations that we're giving in terms of if you're returning and you have symptoms, you should contact your healthcare provider quickly. That still holds. For right now, the epidemiology and the clinical picture that we're seeing doesn't merit the recommendation of having people self-isolate for 14 days after they've returned. I think having people be duly vigilant and seeking care early is the important thing.
How about people wearing masks? We're talking to folks that just kind of wearing masks. Is that more of an emotional response, or does that actually, is that necessary?
You know, I think masks are appropriate in certain situations. Let me just sort of say that in healthcare delivery venues, like a doctor's office, if you know you have someone who's coming in who potentially could be evaluated for corona and has the appropriate travel history, certainly it's appropriate to wear the masks. I'll also add, because we've been talking about being in the flu season, there's New York State law that any healthcare worker who has not received the flu virus has to wear a mask, independent of coronavirus or anything else. So again, this is not the year for them to skip their influenza virus vaccine as well. So that being said, for an everyday New Yorker who may think about wearing a mask, there is no, at this point, there is no indication we would not be recommending the use of masks as protective measures. The thing to note here is the recommendations that we have been giving in terms of frequent hand washing, covering your mouth and your nose when you cough or sneeze, are precautions that are going to help New Yorkers whether or not we end up having our first case of coronavirus. My concern with individuals who choose to use the mask is that if they're not practicing that baseline everyday precaution, washing their hands, covering their mouth and nose, then it gives them a false sense of security. And we need all New Yorkers to be playing off of the same playbook in terms of what's going to keep them safe, healthy, as well as their families and their
I think the commissioner's right. I saw that you were interviewing people in the community